Okay. What's up? What's up, everybody? Good morning. See where we're at over here. So this morning, after I dropped off the baby, I came back and I was listening to Al Jazeera. And this might be interesting too. We could add this to the list to watch. Hezbollah leader praises Hamas terror attack as heroic. Yeah, I was listening to the Hezbollah leader on Al Jazeera, which we're going to listen to in a minute. First, we're going to do a couple of other shorter clips, but it was like an hour-long speech, and I fell asleep at some point, and then I woke up when he started talking a little bit about America. I was like, oh, snap. I woke up. He kind of gave us like a warning, a stern warning or whatever. Also calling for peace, which, I don't know, these people, from what I hear, they just have their own interests really in mind. And at some point, too, he had called out Joe Biden for, like, he said it was something like the pathetic departure of Afghanistan, something like that, which I almost made me chuckle because I remember Trump always talking about how, and a lot of people did, how we departed from Afghanistan, the mess that was. So this Hezbollah person mentioned that. The first clip I was going to start off is with this. I've been listening to a lot of this. Oh, where am I at? Somebody help me. Well, let me add myself to the screen. I've been like almost obsessing with this stuff the last week or so. Let me play this while I start.
Holds no easy answers, never has. It is unclear at this point what will ensure Israel's safety and how that safety can be balanced with the rights and needs of the Palestinians.
That's so fair.
But I do think there's a little bit too much of a binary focus in this country when viewing the conflict. Some of the events are bizarre. Jewish people are afraid in America in a way that I've never seen. Talking about changing their names. Do we need to get guns? Should the kids not be in school? Because of what they see online and on college campuses, which are supposed to be all about tolerance, especially these days, right? Except they're allowing intolerance of Jewish people. Slow down. Now, we have to think about this for a second, okay? They are allowing people to protest against a minority group using some of the most horrible suggestions. Imagine any campus allowing signs of ridding the world of black people or of gay people. That would never happen on a college campus, and that's a good thing. But not with Israel, even though Jewish people are only 2% of this country. Now, of course, Israel is unique, for better and worse. They are the little guy who is stronger than their enemies, or at least they have been in the past. So they are at once seen as David or Goliath, depending on your take. They're also seen by many, and this is controversial, but I do believe this is part of the equation. Many people who are protesting against Israel and Jewish people in America see Jewish people as just more white people. And as such, they are part of an empowered majority. So there is no fear of bigotry against them. But that's not true when it comes to Jewish people. They're not just other Caucasians.
Melissa, thank you so much for the super chat.
The world has seen that too many times, of how there can be a bloodlust for taking Jewish life. However, all that binary controversy, which I guess should not come as a surprise here anymore, everything is looked at through the lens of division. We are addicted to grievance. But there is something being missed in all of this focus on limiting the right and wrong analysis and who should do what to just Israel when it comes to Palestine's welfare. Where is the inclusion of the Arab community in this analysis? For all the talk of Arab brotherhood and Arab states condemning Israel and encouraging uprisings and basically holy war against them, the same countries, even those bordering Palestine, offer no solutions for the Palestinians other than erasing Israel. No safe haven for Palestinians even now, and barely any humanitarian aid. Did you know that? Shouldn't it matter? Did you know that over 20% of Israel's population is Arab and Palestinian? Palestinian or other Arabs, however you want to look at it. Why would Israel have so many Arabs, specifically Palestinians, in its population if it wanted to kill them all? Why would they allow so many? Jewish people have no similar footprint, by the way. Most of the 15 million or so live in Israel or here in the United States. No Arab country has been welcoming to them. There is no burgeoning Jewish population in Syria.
And we're going to talk about that too, because I was asking and posing this question on Discord about the Arab countries as well. And supposedly there's a reason why BL sent me an article, so we're going to talk about that as well. Because I've just been learning a lot about this stuff. I find it fascinating. And as much as I've been like watching this stuff every day, I'm still kind of like clueless. I'm still kind of like maneuvering through and like learning about the history and stuff. And I don't know, it's like a very complicated situation, but I do feel really bad, you know, when I see some of these people being killed on both sides, but there's a lot of civilians dying in Gaza, and I do feel bad, man. And I saw, I was watching this documentary the other day, which was so freaking good. They were talking about the Oslo Accords. That's when Bill Clinton was president, and he was like trying to work something out with Israel and Palestine. And it was really admirable, I thought, what Clinton was doing and how he's such a good negotiator and like a people person. So many times that like they had tried to work something out and it just didn't. But one of the documentaries I was watching that had Bill Clinton, there was like live video footage, and there was like this father and like a 12-year-old kid or something, like in the crossfire, and like they were trying to take cover behind like a barrel or something, and you could see the kid like screaming and crying, and the father was there just kind of like with one hand back, kind of like holding him back, you know what I'm saying, kind of like whatever. And the next thing you know, the next clip, the kid's dead. The kid's they shot and killed him, and the father's just shocked, like he's just there, and the kid's there, and like that made me really sad. I saw that the other day, and that was on that Oslo Accords documentary. And then the other day too, I just started learning about I think it's called Nakba. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but I started learning a little bit about that too. It's a really crazy history.
Or Egypt. They were chased out of most places. That's why there was a move to give them a homeland. Now, of course, Israel has a special connection to Palestine because they share territory, and there's been a lot of aggression. But why have the Arab neighbors been so slow to help their brothers? Syria, Egypt, Iran, which, as we know, is pulling all the strings, right? The elephant in the room is Iran. What is going to be done about them? But all of these countries, including Iran, say no to refugees. Why? Perhaps it's because they don't want to help perceived efforts to remove Palestinians from their land. Or maybe they just don't want any more Palestinians.
Yeah.
The Brotherhood breaks down pretty fast once it's not a simple matter of taking sides against Israel. Even now, Egypt, very slow in allowing aid through or allowing anybody to come onto their land. They won't even allow media to get through to report. Now, some there suggest that Israel is pressuring them to refrain from doing those things.
Get a map.
Is there proof of that? To the contrary, the Prime Minister of Egypt just said they would risk millions of lives to maintain their sovereignty and not be compromised by any fallout from this conflict. Whose lives are they referring to, if not Palestinian lives? And even if they're not going to allow their brothers and sisters to come to their much more resourceful lands, the least the surrounding Arab states could do is provide desperately needed humanitarian aid, right? We're talking about some very wealthy countries, right? Especially relative to Palestine. Look at the graphics of who is helping Palestine. First on the list, America, of course.
Which, by the way, Biden approved, or not Biden, sorry, the House, I should say, the House approved for, I think it was like 13.4 billion or something in aid to Israel, which is taxpayer, of course.
Not that this will quiet any of the calls that the country is assisting in a genocide. Top donors to the UN Relief and Works Agency.
Interesting. Top donors to the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in 2022. USA is at the top.
Agency for Palestine Refugees in 2022. Germany.
DM it to me, Ronan, if you can.
EU, Sweden, Norway. Where are the Arab states? Where are all the oil economies? Norway is ahead of Saudi Arabia, one of the richest places on the planet. Look what they're offering up. 27 million. The Saudis spend more on on vehicles, on luxury goods than they do on helping their.
Well, and the Hamas leader too. Of course, he's not in Gaza. That guy's I think they call it Qatar. He's over there chilling. I heard like the actual real top people, like the people really running shit, they're like chilling somewhere else and some luxury shit, kicking back.
Arab brothers.
But that's how it always is, I guess, right? Like the leaders and stuff.
Look at this. Number 8, number 20, 28, 37, 45, barely in the top 50. And look at the paltry amounts from these countries. You don't even see Egypt or Iran on the list. I wonder why. Even the UAE is barely represented. What's the point? It is very simple and very appealing and satisfying in our grievance culture to make it simple. Pick a side. I'm pro-Palestinian. There's no reason to not want the violence to stop. But it's not that simple. There's no reason to want less suffering, to have a better solution going forward. But it's never proven that simple. And clearly, it can't be just for Israel in the doing. It has to be a broader solution. It has to be broader right now. Why would Israel be more responsible for the welfare of Palestinians than any of the Arab countries surrounding Palestine? How come nobody asks that?
I do think, too, though, the whole controlling of and I still don't know why and how that came out to be, the controlling of the electricity and water is pretty messed up that, I don't know, they could just turn it off, turn it on. I guess from a war point of view, that is strategic, but yeah.
Or what Hamas did with the billions in aid that they've received in the last 20 years. Where is the proof of it in that society? Look, I get why it is so satisfying to think you're taking up for the little guy. But if your goal is not just grievance, but to get to a better place, you better open the aperture of who you see as players in this situation. Because there are a lot of people getting a free ride on your animus. That's all directed at Israel. When they can't solve this situation in themselves, unless they want to decide not to exist, wanting to stop the violence is obvious, and it is virtuous. But the idea that Israel is the only country that can get it done is not only doing a disservice to the reality, but is excusing the responsibility and supposed righteousness of all these other Arab countries. They are just too happy to sit by and hope that Israel is weakened by the situation, and they are getting their way. You have to ask, if you care, why are the Arab states not doing more to help the suffering that they say matters so much? Hey, thank you.
That was one of the recent episodes that I saw. There was this article, too, that has their explanation, supposedly, why Egypt and other Arab countries are unwilling to take Palestine refugees from Gaza. Desperate Palestinians are sealed off in Gaza, try to find refuge under Israel's relentless bombardment in retaliation for the attack of October 7th. Some ask why neighboring Egypt and Jordan don't take them in. The two countries which flank Israel on the opposite side share borders with Gaza. Yeah, so there's other countries, too, that share borders with Gaza. It's not just, I don't know if this would show it properly, but That's one of the pictures. I don't know if that's the best picture. I just kind of looked really quickly. But like you can see, here's Lebanon, Syria, Jordan back here, Egypt, and then here's Gaza. Probably could have had like a better map, but a little tiny strip. I think it says like 25 miles or something, 20 something miles. So, so they've replied, these countries. Jordan has already a large Palestinian population. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah, his toughest remarks said on Wednesday, saying the current war was not just aimed at fighting Hamas, which rules the Gaza Strip, but also an attempt to push the civilian inhabitants to migrate to Egypt. So he feels like, I guess he's trying to say, the Egyptian president, that like this is Israel's way of like pushing them out and pushing the Palestinians on them and to clear out the land. Maybe, I don't know if they're trying to say take it for themselves, but so Egypt doesn't want them. Jordan's king Abdallah gave a similar message a day earlier, saying no refugees in Jordan, no refugees in Egypt. The refusal is rooted in fear that Israel wants to force a permanent expulsion of Palestinians into their countries and nullify Palestinian demands for statehood. Also said a mass exodus would risk bringing militants into Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, from where they might launch attacks on Israel, endangering two countries' 40-year peace treaty. So they have a peace treaty as well, I guess, Egypt and Israel. And so if they move all these people in there, they're worried about these people launching attacks from these places, and that could still an all-out war too. And so they kind of briefly talk about this. I think this is the Nakba thing, which I only heard about this the other day, and I'm still trying to understand this. But it says displacement has been a major theme for Palestinian history. In the 1948 war around Israel's creation, an estimated 700,000 Palestinians were expelled or fled from what is now Israel. Palestinians refer to this event as Nakba, Arabic for catastrophe. In the 1967 Mideast War, when Israel seized the West Bank and Gaza Strip, 300,000 more Palestinians fled, mostly into Jordan. The refugees and their descendants, now nearly 6 million, mostly living in camps and communities in the West Bank, Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. The diaspora has spread further, with many refugees building lives in Gulf Arab countries or the West. So I don't know. Nobody, I guess, wants to take them because they feel like, one, they're just trying to like push them out onto them, and so then they take over that land. And they say that bringing these people into their, I don't know, into their state or country, that it would cause issues there as well and make things unstable and chaotic. So it's kind of like, I don't know, like a mess.
And again, with the end goal of wiping Israel off the map. This video shows a Hamas official being interviewed on Lebanese television. He claims everything Hamas has done is justified. This version with...
And some people will try to argue, from what I've seen a lot, they'll say that like Hamas is a product of years of oppression. And so this was the way, I don't know, they just lashed out. But they're I mean, I don't know, from what I saw in Palestine, there's like a divide too. Like not everybody was for Hamas. And also in Israel, there's a political divide as well.
Subtitles.
And this is all this stuff is like nothing new. Like from the documentaries that I've watched lately, last couple of days, last week, this is just like a repeat. Though this is like worse. Like this is like really, really, really bad. But this has been going on for like decades. You know, and people are like, oh, why can't there be peace? Why there can be peace? And why this has been the same shit for decades. Why can't there be peace? Why can't whatever, two state, whatever? You know, it's not the first time, but I think maybe a lot of people didn't really know. I didn't know that I've always heard of it, but until you actually start watching, you're like, holy crap. This has been like the same cyclical thing going in circles for like forever, you know?
Is being widely shared this afternoon online.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية، يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك احنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة. إسرائيل لازم نأدبها وحنأدبها مرة ثانية وثالثة، ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الأقصى أول مرة، لا حتكون ثانية وثالثة ورابعة، لأنه احنا لدينا إصرار ولدينا قرار ولدينا إمكانيات.
It was going fast, but he said there will be this was not.
I saw something the other day, Ronan, and I don't know if it's true. I saw somebody say that Israel's what's the name? Netanyahu, something like that. That supposedly that they had sent money to Hamas. I don't know if that's true, but that supposedly came out of his own mouth.
Not just the first attack, there will be a second attack, a third attack, and a fourth attack. In the meantime, Hamas is letting some foreigners with passports leave Gaza through the Rafah gate into Egypt. The State Department says a handful of Americans are among the first ones out. It is also letting some critically ill civilians cross as well. But as with every move by Hamas, this one does seem calculated and psychological, meant to show the world a tiny bit of good in order to distract from everything else that is going on. This deal to open that gate was done and arranged, in essence, by Hamas, by the United States, with the help of Qatar, Israel, and Egypt. News Nation's Robert Sherman is live with us in Tel Aviv tonight. And I want to go to this video first, Robert. This Hamas official described these terror attacks and the killings of civilians as, quote, complications on the ground. How is this playing over there in Israel?
And this was another thing that I heard too. I don't know if you guys had heard this in the chat. So I had heard too, when those October 7th attacks happened, right? Which it blows my mind. Not only that these people like flew in on paragliders, but that these guys had GoPros on them. All right. They literally had the thing filmed. They're flying it on GoPros. I mean, I guess everything nowadays is filmed, right? Everybody has cameras. Israel has cameras, all that stuff. So this guy's flying this paraglider stuff. They're filming stuff. And I had heard that supposedly, I don't know if this is true, that Palestinian civilians joined in on this raid or whatever with the attack. And then there's this other issue too with like the West Bank that's messed up, and then the settlers. I'm still trying to understand that, but that the West Bank is getting attacked. Carly says Israel has sent aid to Palestine for years. I've been watching Ben.
Ghazi Hamad is senior official with Hamas, and if he comes across as media savvy, it's because he is. Spent a long time as a managing editor of a newspaper in Gaza City, which underscores what Hamas does, Elizabeth. They're very calculated, and everything that they do, they put out videos for. I mean, you saw that initial attack, the high-quality video that came with it. You saw the video of those hostages being released, the elderly women and the Hamas fighters giving them a candy bar and things like that. This is what Hamas does, and what's the outcome of this? You still have millions of people around this region who believe the Israelis bombed a hospital. You still have people who believe that Hamas are freedom fighters, not terrorists. And then you have a lot of outrage around the Middle East as a...
Yeah, there's this whole thing too about whether some people see Hamas as freedom fighters, liberators and stuff, you know?
Result, Elizabeth, in support of Hamas.
We also heard another leader of Hamas speaking out, calling out the United States by name. What did he say?
Yes, this one just came out today as well. I want you to take a careful listen to what he had to say. Listen to this.
We remind the countries that are supporting this entity and providing a cover for them to cause this massacre to our people in Gaza, and especially the United States of America. We remind them of the urgency of backing down on these outdated colonial policies, and we ask them to stop militarily supporting this fascist government. We ask them to stop obstructing international efforts to end the violence in Gaza and open crossings.
Well, there you go. That messaging is very different than what we've heard from the State Department, which has been calling for the Rafah crossing to be open for weeks. We do know that it is open for a bit today, a couple hundred people being allowed passing.
Also want to show with that. This guy, he's been making the rounds. This guy is, I'm sure you guys have had to see this guy by now. He's like one of the Hamas's leaders, the son of the Hamas leader, one of them, which I guess he's turned around and changed his way, changed his life. He's been very, very outspoken, been on so many media outlets.
Bob joins us now. Thank you so much for making the time. I know you're on the other side of the world. I've been chasing you for a while because I think your perspective is so valuable. So thank you very much. And what do you want people to know about what the threat to Palestine's future is? Where is it coming from?
Oops.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Lots of confusion, huh? Hamas organization is a barbaric organization, and we have to remove them from power at
this guy's been going
whatever
off.
it takes. And all the people who are afraid to see bloodshed, to them I say, this is war. This is war. We will have to accept it. And Hamas started this war. We're talking about organization that does not regard human life. And this is not their first war against Israel. We have previous wars where they initiated the war against Israel. And the world and the global public bent so fast. And we begged for a ceasefire in the past 3 wars against Hamas. And Israel had to...
Grumpy said, Cuomo should get a report from Gaza. They had last night they had Anna Kasparian, if that's how you say her name, from the Turks channel. Which I don't really like the Young Turks, but I still watch sometimes because I like watching a lot of different perspectives. Even though you see me playing this, we're gonna get to, you got to give me a little chance. We're gonna get to the Al Jazeera thing. I've actually been watching a lot of Al Jazeera, but she was on there last night. She was going off on Cuomo. It was kind of interesting.
Submit to the public opinion, and we did not finish them in the previous 3 wars. Every time they came back stronger, and this time the voices rise again, asking to stop and to cease the fire. And what will happen tomorrow if we cease fire now? The job is unfinished. This problem has been going on for 35 years. This is Hamas. And they have been trying so hard.
Carly says the Brits actually started this 100 years ago. The Brits are always making trouble. So the Brits allied with the Arabs, right? To go against the Ottomans, I believe, right? In that whole area of like the Israel area, I believe, right? And then I thought the history is that the Brits had turned their back and lied to the Arabs, and after they beat the Ottomans, because they were supposed to give the land over. I forgot what the whole land thing was they were supposed to do. I just saw it the other day on a video. They basically turned their backs on the Arabs, and who did they give the land to? I guess they gave it to the Jewish people, but then at some point, because there were so many wars, they gave it up to the UN, and the UN decided like on a 2-state thing, which was just kind of a mess.
To annihilate the state of Israel, risking the Palestinian lives,
and
risking the civilians in the entire region.
But
so
we just had a guest on, Mossab, who's sympathetic to the Palestinian cause.
And he's talking about Anna was on there.
She says what many say here, which is Israel is killing so many civilians in Palestine that this is almost about bloodlust, and that Hamas is their only chance to fight back, and that this is an act of a desperate people, and it should be understood that way. What do you say to that point of view?
Well, I say to that point of view, it's better be silent at this moment, because anti-Semitism and anti-Israel, anti-life is what was in common between this type of people and the Nazis. Because the Nazis, about 100 years ago, it was a point of view, and soon later, they were gassing people in chambers. So today we have very similar situation. We have a Nazi group. We saw what they did on October 7th. And they are hiding behind children and women. Israel say evacuate civilians, leaflets, phone calls, through media, gave them an opportunity of 20 days to evacuate. But they didn't. They still given shelter to Hamas. You know why? Because they are partnering with Hamas. And in this case, Israel is not responsible for any harm that happens to these civilians in northern Gaza, staying now as we speak.
Hey, thank you for watching.
This guy wanted to show he's been going freaking off the walls, This one here. That was nothing. I'm going to show this one. This one I had to censor it, the graphics. So I edited a video. I'll play the video that I edited just because they were showing too many graphic stuff. But let's do this one first.
That he wanted a different life and is now here to give us insight on Hamas and the organization.
Bro, look at his face.
The Israelis hope to take apart. First
intense,
off, what's
right?
up? Great to see you. I'm wondering, did you know the guy that we just took out, that Israel just took out?
I didn't know him personally.
How significant is this?
Not a high profile. I think he's important because he was part of the operation on October 7th. We are looking for the big names, Mohammed al-Daif, Yahya al-Sinwar, and other Hamas top leaders. When we start, and I think soon we are going to start hearing about their names down. Well, and I hope just like dominoes.
Right. Well, this guy was important because in addition to one of the directors of the October 7th attack, he also was one of the guys in charge of their, what they refer to as their aerial forces. He helped develop drones and paragliders, which of course famously were.
Yeah, I believe Israel has like the city surrounded now, right? It's kind of crazy to think about, like, they're also getting attacked. So Israel's moving in on Gaza, surrounding them, but then they're also getting attacked by, I think it's Lebanon. Is it Syria too that's been launching missiles and stuff, or rockets and stuff? We still got to get to this whole Hezbollah stuff.
Used on October the 7th, Mossab.
Yeah, he's been through a lot.
Look, I commend all the warriors right now on the ground. They are brave. They are fighting on our behalf, on my behalf, on your behalf, on behalf of the free world. They are courageous. And we give them all the support that they need. This is good progress, okay? We have paused, but we have lots of work to do.
Indeed.
And now we need a very strong siege. We need a siege. Mm-hmm. Then we need somehow to put pressure on the Egyptian government so they can open the border for the Gazans to just depart. I don't care if they depart for good. They can go for good. We don't need Gaza there. You know, Gaza is a big refugee camp that was supposed to be demolished 70 years ago. Christ. But they kept at the hope that were given by the United Nations and the Arab countries. And this is how we have this crisis right now. At this moment, we have war. Civilians are there, wrong place. Instead of the United Nations blaming everybody and saying a humanitarian crisis, they should allow the civilians evacuate. Egypt has to open the borders. The United States must put pressure, apply tremendous pressure on the Egyptian government to open the freaking border. You know, the United States give Egypt in military aid close to $1.3 billion from the taxpayer money every year. They can put some pressure. Israel cannot put pressure on Egypt, but I think the United States can. Let all the Palestinians who are in the Gaza Strip evacuate immediately so Israel can do the job correctly and eradicate this barbaric organization.
Mossab, I hear the frustration in your voice, and your point is duly noted because, as you know, Hamas is using all the civilians that is there as human shields. But I want to go back into the organization because I also heard your frustration there. What you're saying is that this guy will be easily replaced. Most of the leaders don't live on the Gaza Strip. Mm-hmm. They're not even there. So can you explain to our audience what the organization structure is of Hamas?
Okay, this guy belongs to the military wing. But Israel is not only going against the military wing on the Gaza front. Trust me, as we speak right now, we have a dozen of intelligence services around the globe, including Arab intelligence services, that they are on the tail of Hamas leaders abroad, especially the political wing. And sooner or later, they are going to be brought to justice. They're not going to get away with this. But the Gaza front is the most significant front right now because there are civilians involved. There are hostages involved. And we have to move slowly. So every day you are going to hear about those guys. We will eradicate them. I'm sure Israel is determined and it has the power, but we cannot move in very fast. We have to apply unbreachable siege and for long enough to deplete Hamas, to deprive them, to starve them. We have to cut every mean of life from them. Then after that, we can move faster. But as of now, we cannot risk more lives, more Israeli soldiers' lives by pushing them towards suicidal group.
So
we have to move slowly.
So Musab, you're for the slow maneuver, not the D-Day type invasion, but a slow maneuver forward.
Absolutely.
They're about 2 miles in, and yesterday they freed one hostage. I can imagine she's going to talk. The other hostages that they released are talking. Do you think that the best way to get the hostages out is to move the IDF in?
Look, the best way to do is to work silently and collect intelligence. This is what we need. We need information. The moment we have information, it doesn't matter, even if they are 20 miles away. There will be a special force going behind the enemy lines. It doesn't matter where they are. And we will get to the hostages. But most importantly, we need intelligence. It's good that we are on the ground because this gets us closer to target. And I hope that within the next days or weeks, we will have good news. And I'm sure Israel doing everything they can to bring those hostages back to their families.
You mentioned the top commanders. You named them. Where are they?
Well, Sinwar most likely is under Al-Shifa Hospital, some 30 meters deep in the sand, which sand is very resilient to bombing. It's not easy to get to him, and in order to kill him, probably we will have to...
well, that's the thing. I don't know how they're going to do this tunnel thing. There's massive tunnels under the city. I have no idea how...
Fighters exiting tunnels to fire at nearby Israeli tanks. These are guerrilla tactics, small Hamas teams sneaking up on Israeli soldiers with far superior technology. They're using drones to drop mortars, helping make Israel's Gaza ground invasion deadly and difficult. Buried deep underground, Hamas has built what Israel assesses is a tunnel network 200 to 300 miles long.
That's how they get their weapons.
Dug by hand, it's called the Metro, where Hamas fighters can move weapons and themselves safely. The tunnels have ventilation, electricity, and are Hamas's single most important asset.
Hamas has built for decades tunnels leading under, integrated in to all the Gaza cities.
John Spencer chairs the Modern War Institute's Urban Warfare Studies at West Point and has visited tunnels in Israel.
They used them for everything you can imagine, to smuggle all the rockets and weapons technologies they currently have, to infiltrate Israel, to include on October 7th, to place rockets that don't need people in hidden little openings of the tunnels.
Israel will stand against the forces of barbarism until victory.
Israeli.
Yeah, it's a huge tunnel system. I don't know how they're going
to destroy the entire hospital. But he's not going to hide forever. You know, we're coming after him. Armies, angels of heavens and earth are after those terrorists and barbaric people. Right. We are going to eradicate them. There is no escape.
Right.
There is no escape. It doesn't matter. Even if he escapes Gaza, we are going after him. Everybody knows.
Mossab, the IDF says in the last day they struck 300 targets, including anti-tank missile and rocket launch posts, which were below shafts, they say, as well as military compounds inside underground tunnels belonging to the Hamas terrorist organization. So the IDF is down in the tunnels, and apparently it sounds like the militants are responding. They're shooting anti-tank missiles and machine gun fire at the IDF. The question for you regarding this is, knowing what you do about Hamas, are they, when you're down in the tunnels, are those tunnels booby-trapped? Are people wearing belt bombs like we saw with Al-Qaeda?
They claimed there was traps on there.
ISIS? I mean, what do IDF soldiers have to worry about when they're down in that hole?
Well, first of all, they have different types of tunnels. The IDF talking about most likely offensive tunnels. Those are the closer tunnels to the Israeli border. This type of tunnels Hamas use for, or they constructed with the goal to deploy their members behind the enemy line in case of Israel invasion. So now this is the job of the IDF, and it's why they have to move slowly, because we need to discover all these tunnels. And I think, without revealing so much, the IDF has technology. They have technology to detect and be able to at least cut the snake in small parts. If they are not able to cut the head, we can cut the snake in small parts, which will not allow Hamas to escape those tunnels. So we can trap.
Yeah, I just can't imagine, like, if the IDF, the Israel forces, they go in there and they try to go through these tunnels, which is probably where the hostages are at, going in through such a thin environment that you don't really know the layout of. They have all the advantage. Hamas could be really bad. I don't know how they're going to handle that.
Them in those tunnels. Not having to say much about this. So now that our
the umbrella corporation, oh my god,
is the offensive.
I haven't heard
tunnels.
that in a long time.
Later on is going to be a lot more complicated, which is the defensive tunnels.
Those
are the ones under the populated areas. Hence, I say the United States must put pressure on Egypt to open the border. We need all the civilians out so we can have the freedom to eradicate them.
But Mossab, is it just getting the civilians out? I mean, knowing what you know about the organization, knowing what you know about the tunnel structure, knowing that there's going to be a lot of HR hostage rescues, can Israel do it without the United States' help on the ground as well?
Of course not. Of course not. And the United States, whether we like it or not, we are part of this war. Yeah. Because if we don't show power, we are going to be next. In fact, this Hamas, Iran, Russia is aiming at the United States through Israel. So we all realize this problem. In fact, I would like to see more presence of the United States, more military presence. I'm not talking about military action. There is a big difference between having the presence that we are here, we are ready, and if you dare to launch a missile from Iran or from Hezbollah, we are going to hit you, and we're going to hit you very hard. So this, just waving the stick, I'm not saying to take part, could prevent us from a regional war, could prevent us from World War III.
Yeah, but the problem is we're not hitting back at all. We've been attacked 23 times in Iraq and in Syria. Is that a problem in the world that you left?
Sorry, I did not understand the question.
We've been hit in our bases in Iraq and in Syria multiple times, 23 times. We've only answered back once. Is that a problem in the land that you left?
Well, for the time being, let's stay in the high waters. Let's stay in the sea. I'm not saying ground bases and moving on the ground. Let's stay on the high seas, show them the American might.
Yep, that would be great.
Okay, and there's there's this one where he was snapping too. Let me show. I had to edit it. I had to edit out the graphics to do it. There was one part where they're literally showing somebody get sledgehammered or something. I don't know what it was blurred, but you can still see the guy doing like this. I'm like, I mean, it's the news, it's war, I get it, but I just don't understand why for this interview they needed to have that playing in the background. So
Joining us now is
just let me play it on the VLC player because the Windows Media Player sucks. Let's see.
From the inside, knows its workings, knows its ideology, and has been known as the Green Prince, the son of Hamas. Mossab Hassan Yusuf is joining us on Times Now for the very first time. My first question is, what was life inside Hamas like, and what made you leave it?
Hamas, in short, is a barbaric Islamist organization that is using violence to achieve their political and religious agendas at the expense of many civilians, children, women, and elder. Hamas is a brutal organization that does not regard the human life. What we saw from ISIS, very similar, but Hamas is much more dangerous. And I have been saying this for over 20 years, that we have a problem with Islamists. And if we don't stand united and fight this disease, uproot it completely, forever, they will continue coming back and terrorizing people in India, terrorizing people in the Middle East, in the United States, Everywhere they go, they spread disease. So we have to counter them. They are a disease. I don't want to go and expand on what Hamas is like from within, because it's darkness. And what we saw actually in their action, how do we define them? We define them by their action. And what we saw on October 7th defines Hamas.
So, you have described in detail in your book about, your growing up years, etc. Your father was one of the founding members of Hamas. But in 21st century world, one wonders, how does the Hamas get young men to join their ranks? After all, shouldn't everyone today be thinking of getting ahead in life, making money, even their PlayStations? How does Hamas indoctrinate young men to join them?
Because when we give them the freedom to roam in the world and do whatever they want, of course they can influence those who don't have the power of discernment to know what is true and what is false. So many fall victims to Hamas and other criminal and terrorist groups. So why we have responsibility to stop Hamas, and by countering their ideology, by destroying their infrastructure, by destroying their military capacity, by destroying their propaganda, by destroying their podium, the platforms they use, by standing united, that the world, the globe, entirely reject Hamas brutality, that this is not a way of life, that this is not acceptable, that some group want to dominate, annihilate an entire race, the Jewish race, in order to build their Islamic state. This is not acceptable. Mother Earth does not belong only to a religion, does not belong only to a race, does not belong to the Nazis, and does not belong to Hamas or to the Islamists.
You're talking about a religious war, but a lot of people who are right now rallying for Palestine say, Hamas actually was responding to years of repression of the Palestinian people by the Israelis. They are actually resistance warriors. They are freedom fighters. What do you say to that?
They're just a bunch of clowns. They're sheep. And this type of people are living in denial. Hamas aggression is not only known through October 7th attack. Hamas has a long history of attacking civilians. Back in the 1990s, they killed and wounded thousands of civilians in Israel. In the 2000s, during the Second Palestinian Intifada, they killed and wounded thousands of civilians. They targeted synagogues, buses, markets, grocery stores, beach clubs, nightclubs, schools, even universities. This is what Hamas has, a very long history of targeting civilians. This is not a new thing, what happened on October 7th. So I don't understand why the world is living in denial. And by the way, I think my army in India, my army of warriors, those who are Shiva worshippers, those who understand Krishna and understand the Gita, understand the Upanishad, and understand the spiritual dimension of this war, need to actually gear up and show this minority in the West that Islamists are not acceptable in our globe. The way they represent themselves and the way they want to achieve their agendas through violence. So I call for all my armies in India. This is my greatest army in India, to rise up, not by the means of violence. I don't mean that they use violence against that, but to stand united and firm and tell the rest of the world that we don't accept any form of Islamists. Not Hamas, not ISIS, not Islamic Jihad, not Al-Qaeda. Islamists must die forever.
Damn.
This is it. This is the final war against Islamists, and we have to win this war. Israel is at this front, okay? Israel is at this front, and we should not leave them alone. We have to stand behind them. This is not about nationalism. Israel is fighting on our behalf. I am part of that fight, and it has been an honor. And I ask all my people in India to stand with us. We have to counter this disease. We have to uproot it.
What is the Hamas's real agenda?
Hamas belongs to Islam. And I don't want this to become an incitement against the Muslim people, because the Muslim people were born this way. And they are paralyzed. And they cannot fight for themselves. If they don't fight for their own freedom, I cannot fight on their behalf. You cannot fight on their behalf. Therefore, we will have to accept them as part of humanity. But when they start developing Islamists, political Islam, that has guns, that has rifles, and shooting people, we have to make it very clear. The moment they manifest their violence, we are going to counter their violence with force, and if necessary, with lethal force. You know, if they have Allah to their side, we have agony to our side.
There have been many terror attacks, across the world that we have seen, from the US to India to Somalia. But October 7th stood out for its sadistic and, if I may say, almost needless brutality. The kind of accounts that we've heard of rapes, murders, people incinerated, decapitation. What explains this hyper-escalation of violence?
This is what happens to us when we are separate from the divine, when we are separate from Brahman, when we are separate from the source, and we identify ourselves with some ideologies and some beliefs, all human delusion. And yes, by the name of freedom in the West, and everywhere, that we allowed dark entities to take over. And by the name of democracy and by the name of freedom, they became somehow a very strong voice that we need to counter. It doesn't matter if they are majority or not. We, the people of truth, we live truthfully and we go according to existence, and we belong to the source. Because I don't have a problem with the rest of the world. Indians have no problem. Hindus, they have no problem with the rest of the world. We coexist. Christians coexist. Jews coexist. So why only it's coming from the Islamists all the time, this violence? Of course, there are extremists everywhere, but we see it on a much bigger scale coming from Islamists. And we have to say it clearly and loudly that this is rejected. I rejected myself. I had to die for this cause, for this problem. I was shunned by my family, I was shunned by my culture, by everything, only to say no violence, no to violence and no to bloodshed, no to suicide bombing attacks. My entire nation shunned me. They demonized me. They made me into Satan. This is what they do to everybody who resists this disease. Therefore, this is now the moment of truth. And I know both sides. And on this authority, I say, we have to stand united. In India, in the United States, in Europe, we have to stand behind Israel. We have to win this fight and eradicate this barbaric terrorist organization called Hamas, or any Islamist movement.
He was snapping. Now I wanted to play, I think he did I don't know if Al Jazeera's going to let me play this. We'll see. I wanted to hear some of this because I fell asleep. This was Hezbollah leader.
Celebration as we celebrate our fallen martyr, as we gather today to honor the memory of our fallen martyrs and renew our pledge to continue onto their path. Today we honor the memory of the fallen martyrs, the martyrs of the Islamic resistance in Lebanon, Hezbollah, the martyrs of the Lebanese factions fighting and resisting against the Israeli occupation, the fallen martyrs of Al-Qassam in Lebanon, Al-Quds Brigade martyrs in Lebanon, together with all the fallen civilian martyrs who were murdered at the hands of the Zionists, including journalists. I start by offering my deepest condolences to the families of the fallen here in Lebanon. We offer our condolences and at the same time congratulate you as your loved ones have won this honor, the honor of martyrdom. Many of you have lost loved ones, a father, a brother, or a son. And I pray to God Almighty to accept all our good deeds. We offer condolences and congratulations at the same time to all the families of the fallen martyrs in Gaza Strip, West Bank, and on every inch where our brave martyrs have fallen, including those of Al-Aqsa typhoon or Al-Aqsa floods that has extended on a number of fighting fronts. I will not delve much on this as we will celebrate the Martyrs' Day in a few days' time. However, I must reiterate that those fallen martyrs have won, and it is sufficient to go to our Holy Scripture, the Quran, to read what God Almighty said about them, and we are entitled to take pride in them, and we must remain firmly with certainty that they are rewarded with paradise, with all the rewards you never envisaged or heard of. As God says in the Holy Scripture, those killed in the cause, to the service of the cause of God, will be rewarded with paradise as introduced to them. Oh, believers, if you support and work for God's cause, you will be rewarded with victory.
There was a thing, I don't want to interrupt too much because this is like an hour long. I want to try to get through most of it because it gets way more intense. I woke up out of my sleep. I fell asleep listening to this guy, and then I woke up when he started kind of going off. But there was one thing too. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I should have clipped it. There was I don't know if it's the authentication of it, but there was supposedly this Hamas guy that had killed. He claims he had killed 10 people, and there's like an audio recording, and he calls his mother and father, and he's like, "Hey, mom, dad, like, guess what? Like, I killed 10 Jews. I killed 10 Jews. He's like celebrating, he's screaming. I think the mother's crying in the background, but the father's like, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, go kill more. And he's like, yeah. It was pretty wild. And I think the last person he had killed was like a woman or something. I don't know. I guess that's the mentality and mindset. It's pretty wild. I mean, I don't know how verified it was, but they put that out and translated it.
The same in Al-Imran Surah. Do not think those fallen to the service of cause of God are dead, yet they are alive, joyful with what they have been rewarded with, without fear or grief, abiding in God's blessings that their good deeds were not wasted. So our fallen martyrs are not dead. They are alive, not in the judgment day where all the human beings will be.
And then on the other side, I hear I think it's the West Bank, that like the settlers, which I guess, I don't know, that's the Jewish people there. I heard that those people are encroaching on the people that the Palestinian people that are living there and like killing people, like Palestinians. People that aren't armed, I don't know, I guess some retaliation or the anger, or, I don't know.
It is erected. No, those fallen martyrs are now alive in God's paradise. Do not think they are dead. They are alive, but you feel not them. We congratulate all the fallen martyrs, the fighters, the civilians, the aggrieved, women, men.
Michelle says, look into the children's show look into the children's show Tomorrow's Pioneers from Gaza. It explains a lot of how the hatred has been ingrained into the children. I thought I had seen like there's cartoons that literally say to kill or hate or whatever. Like the kids are raised up like that over there, you know.
Children.
And then also, I don't know, from the other side of the argument that I hear too, as well, is that, like, you know, imagine your mother and father being killed, and that's all you know. This is the life you grew up in. You know how you would feel.
Old and young.
Borat already.
We congratulate them for this massive transition at the presence of God, paradise where there is no Israeli oppression or American hubris, no killing, no massacres, no pogroms. And from this firm conviction, we congratulate them. And to their families, we say, your loved ones have fallen in a battle on the face of the earth. And if we are to look for a fully legitimate, lawful battle from the legal, ethical, or religious perspectives, we cannot find one, but that battle fighting against the Zionist occupiers. This is a seamless battle at the human, ethical, or religious levels. It is the most evident, the most honest, and the most noble to the service of the cause of God. This what must be established in the first place. We also say to the relatives of the fallen martyrs, we are proud of you. We take all pride in you. We have heard your statements of acceptance, submission for the fall of your loved ones. And here lies our true strength before the arms. Our true strength lies in our firm belief, unshaken conviction, our devotion and commitment to the cause. We are prepared to sacrifice. It is expressed in the voices of the fathers, mothers, wives, and children of the fallen martyrs. Equally enough, we salute the epic people, unmatched, unrivaled, the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza. We have seen them on TV screens. Man, woman, child, baby, crawling from underneath the rubble. Yet he cries out saying, all what is lost is to sacrifice for the sake of our homeland, for the sake of our cause. We cannot put this into words. We cannot express their fortitude, bravery, patience, and resolve. The same applies to the residents of West Bank. Patience, fortitude, and resolve. Ladies and gentlemen, today I will address you on the main topic in order to understand what happened and to make clear of our position and also identify the liabilities. and taking into consideration the Lebanese affairs, which will require further details at a later point of time. At the beginning, we must also salute all those who took to the street in support and in solidarity with the Palestinians from all over the world, Arab and Muslim and Latin American countries, the peoples of different nations, specifically the strong and brave Iraqi and Yemeni arms who are now involved in this holy war. Why have we reached that point, and what is the backdrop of what happened in October 7, Al-Aqsa Typhoon operation? I will address bullet points in brief. It must be mentioned in order to build up our stand. The pain and suffering of the Palestinian people is not a secret to the whole world, and there is no point to delve in this. Yet, the recent years were harsh, especially with this radical, stupid, and brutal government of Israel. There are four main headlines on the Palestinian landscape. The first is the Palestinian detainees. Thousands of Palestinian men and women and even children are held behind Israeli bars, some for years. Many are on the verge of death, and no one is moving a finger. And with this radical government, this stupid minister made the lives of the detainees and their families even worse. The second issue is Al-Quds, Al-Aqsa Mosque, and what has been happening in the past weeks, namely the few days before Al-Aqsa Typhoon. These conditions were unprecedented since the occupation of Jerusalem in 1967. Third, the unjust siege laid to Gaza for more than 20 years, almost 20 years. More than 2 million people living in an open concentration camp without any person moving a finger in the whole world. The fourth one is the recent perils and risks hovering on the West Bank through the expansive illegal Israeli settlement under the auspices of this stupid fool government, in addition to the daily detention and demolition of homes. These are the key four headlines that have impacted the Palestinian and the Palestinian resistance, and no one in the whole world is moving a finger. The United Nations, Security Council, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, League of Arab States, European Union, none of the international blocs or organizations. On the contrary, the Palestinian cause and all what is happening in Palestine were totally forgotten. The whole world turned a blind eye to them, totally abandoned, totally forgotten. In contrast, the policies of the enemy are more ferocious, oppressive, humiliating. Therefore, there must be a big event to shake this oppressive, occupying, usurping Zionist regime with their backers in Washington and London, and to reopen these humanitarian issues before the eyes of the whole world. and to resurface the Palestinian cause, the just cause, as the focal cause to the whole world. Then came that glorious jihadi operation of October 7th, Al-Aqsa Typhoon. The operation was triggered by the fighters of Izzuddin al-Qassam, supported by the fighters of other Palestinian resistance factions in Gaza Strip. This operation, so this is the first point in the backdrop of the event. This glorious, blessed, large-scale operation was 100% Palestinian in terms of decision and execution, 100% Palestinian. Even the Palestinians have kept it secret, even from their fellow Palestinian resistance factions in Gaza, let alone other resistance factions across the resistance axis. That element of secrecy was a linchpin to this emphatic success of the operation. It came as a surprise, shocking surprise, unlike what is assumed by many, namely those who would like to drive a wedge among us, unlike to what's been assumed by many. That type of confidentiality and secrecy adopted by Al-Qassam did not anger us here. It was a requirement for the success of the operation. And this operation has no bearing on any decision or move to be taken by any other faction along the resistance axis.
He got lined up.
This move taken by Hamas have stamped the true identity of the battle and also precluded all the enemies and hypocrites to raise any false claims, especially when they speak about the relations between the regional resistance factions. At any point of time when there is a battle, they start to speak about the Iranian nuclear program, the U.S.-Iran negotiations to serve the Iranian interests or agenda in the region. False claims. Yet, Al-Aqsa Typhoon was 100% Palestinian in terms of decision and execution. The secrecy in which the entire operation was shrouded proves that it is a totally Palestinian cause for the sake of Palestine and the people of Palestine, and it has no relation at all to any international or regional issue. This operation also proves what we have been reiterating over the past years. Let the foe and friend understand. Let it be understood by all enemies and friends that the decisions of the resistance factions is in the hands of their own leader. Since the Iranian Revolution, from Khomeini to Khamenei, have always been openly adopting and supporting resistance factions in Lebanon, Palestine, and in the region. However, they do not exercise any form of authority or mandate on these factions or in their command. And what happened with the Al-Aqsa Typhoon proves this fact. And those who are willing to interpret what is taking place today and what's going to take place in the future, that the true decision makers are the leaders of the resistance themselves, to the service of their top and true cause. Ladies and gentlemen, the third issue I would like to speak about, the repercussions of this event. What's been happening on the battlefield, I believe you are all closely following. No doubt, it was a brave, heroic, creative, perfect, massive operation, commended at all fronts and at all levels. What are the repercussions of this glorious operation? It caused a seismic shake, an earthquake in terms of security, military, politics, diplomatic, even psychological. It has very profound strategic, existential repercussions that will continue to have bearing on the presence of this Zionist entity and its future. No matter what the enemy's government has done over the past days, and no matter what they will do over the coming days, cannot change the impacts and repercussions of Al-Aqsa Typhoon strategically and historically on this Zionist entity and the future of the conflict in this region. This operation has lifted the lid and uncovered
many. And the interesting thing too, I mean, I don't know, he said last month's attack was a Palestinian operation hidden from everyone.
Many facts. However, speaking of the repercussions, the glorious repercussions and effects of this glorious operation requires hours, if not days. However, what's more important, it has exposed the frailty, weakness, and total fragility of Israel, more frail than a spider's web. I have read some reports on the Israeli media that
he's talking his shit.
The Israelis themselves have come now to believe, more than someone, meaning myself. The Israelis have come to believe that Israel is more frail than a spider's web. This fact was established and cemented by Al-Aqsa Typhoon operation. The United States administration, represented in their president, ministers, state secretaries, and even top brass, to support this shaking entity in order to get some breathe, get back on its feet again, and to restore some action and to take the initiative, which he has until now. And they had it to provide all forms of protection and support. The swift response by the United States to support and back Israel has proven how failing Israel is. From the very first days of Al-Aqsa Typhoon operation against a totally besieged Gaza Strip, the Israeli government was in a dire need for the U.S. fleet to navigate to the Mediterranean for military and psychological support. Where is your fleet? Where is your warplanes? Where is the invincible army of Israel, the mightiest in the region? Where is all that? The United States hurriedly dispatched warplane carriers and other pieces of their naval fleet. The U.S. top brass generals, military experts running to the area to open the strategic weapon depots for the Israelis. From the very first days, Israel demanded new weapons, new missiles from the United States. From the very first day, Israel demanded $10 billion. Is it a strong state? Is it an invincible army, as claimed? A state that required that amount of U.S. and Western support? Heads of state, heads of governments, defense ministers, top brass generals, flocking from all over the world to provide moral support. This is what Al-Aqsa Typhoon has caused to this frail entity. These are some of the profound impacts of Al-Aqsa Typhoon operation. All these must be evaluated and analyzed in detail, which we don't have time to. Yet, we must understand
no, I can't do that, T-Bag. You get me canceled, bro.
Offered in Gaza, West Bank, and at all fronts are really worthy. All these sacrifices, all these achievements,
that looks dope, but I get canceled for showing that.
And repercussions deserve all these sacrifices simply for the reason that it paved a way for a new slate in our conflict with the Israeli enemy. It paved the way for many countries and nations within the region. There was and there is no other option. The other option is silence, waiting for more oppression, more siege, more death, more killing. This was the other option. That's why we can say that the decision was wise, brave, prudent, and worthy of all these sacrifices. The next point, how was the enemy's response to Al-Aqsa Typhoon operation? From the very first hours, it was clear that the enemy was lost, stray. You know, it's a Sabbath day, and this was a perfect timing by the commander.
Yeah, the October 7th attack was on, I think, was it called Black Sabbath? It was on Sabbath day.
Of Al-Qassam.
Hey, this is a perfect time to attack. Oh, shit.
It seemed that they have had a long night, drunkards, not only in Gaza.
Wow, this dude really, I didn't hear this part. I don't know if I was sleeping. Wow.
Envelope, but also Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It took them hours to come out. They came out in historical state, angry, in an insane fashion.
He said they were drunk. Wow. They did take a very long time to respond, like Israel, to respond to the attack. I thought in one, I don't know if I heard somewhere like almost 10 hours or something where the whole rave thing happened, the party was happening.
That's why when they had it to recapture the settlement within Gaza envelope, they perpetrated massacres against the Israeli settlers. not Hamas. Now we start to hear and read reports and investigations providing evidence that it was the Israelis who perpetrated the killing among the Israeli settlers. And in the near future, when the dust settles, the whole world would come to know that all those killed within Gaza envelope were killed by the Israeli army itself, who was acting insanely.
غزة وأمام الحادث المهول الذي تعرض له العدو.
In the wake of this big seismic event, it seems that the successive government of Israel do not learn the lesson. Unlike we always hear that Israel is learning the lesson, here they are. They never learn from past lessons or experiences. Especially their experiment or experience with their wars against resistance factions in Lebanon and Palestine. What is taking place today took place in the past with some differences. In July 2006, in the successive wars with Gaza, at a different scale and different levels. Among the gravest mistakes committed by the enemy in the past, and it is taking place now, is setting high goals that they cannot achieve. Setting high goals they cannot reach. They set as top goal to annihilate Hamas, the whole of Hamas. Then, speaking of toppling the government of Hamas, then eliminating the leaders of Hamas, then the military wing of Hamas. Now they are claiming to have as a top goal to annihilate Hamas. And when they started to wake up, they now speak about another goal, to bring home the captives. Those who have had a long experience with different resistance factions in Palestine and Lebanon throughout history, have you seen at any point of time, the Israelis capable of releasing their captives without negotiations? Never. What happened in Lebanon 2006? They declared as the goal is to annihilate, to wipe out Hezbollah. They were backed by the United States and the whole West, including Arab states. Their goal at that time was to wipe out Hezbollah from Lebanon and to bring home the 2 Israeli captives.
I didn't know that. I never heard of that before.
The war extended for 33 days.
That's the one in 2006 he's talking about? I heard
neither Hezbollah was wiped out, nor their 2 captives released without negotiations. The same thing is taking place today in Gaza. Yet,
wow. I had heard about something big that happened in 2006. I don't know the details of it, but he's talking about it. He's saying, like, you guys starting to wipe us out. You didn't do nothing. We're still here. And he's saying that you guys are setting all these high goals and expectations that you can't even complete. Like, he's talking a lot of ish. I don't know if it's really talking ish. If it, I mean, at least the 2006 weren't able to do it. I don't know all the details to it. It's interesting to hear. It's pretty crazy. It's wild. Things are escalating. He doesn't say. I saw somebody in the chat mention he didn't declare war, but at some point he says all options are open. And that they at some point, so he said a civilian for a civilian type of thing.
With a difference, and the difference is the massive pogrom, the massive amount of destructions and killing. In July war, 1,150 houses leveled, thousands of fallen martyrs. Yet, the resistance fighters at all fronts, backed by the Lebanese people, stood their ground. The enemy, step by step, gave up on his goals. What's taking place in Gaza Strip today proves the stupidity and impotency of the Israelis. They are wreaking killing among civilian Palestinians in Gaza. Most of those killed are women and children. The majority of the victims are civilians. Churches, mosques, school buildings, even hospitals are not spared. Everything is legitimized. Entire neighborhoods are wiped out. School buildings, places of worship, and the whole world is standing by watching. Does this require an invincible army? For a whole month, the Israelis failed to produce a single military achievement. And when they started the ground operation, the same scenario of July war in Lebanon, the random shelling, displacement of citizens, and the killing and the falling of thousands of martyrs could not bring the resistance to their knees. Then, at that time, the Israelis started their ground operation, and to them, our fighters stood up to them, and the whole battle was followed by the whole world. The same thing is repeated in Gaza. The Israelis are trying to launch a ground operation in order to sell to the whole world that they are launching a large-scale ground operation. Even the limited moves taken by them were met by the bravery of the Palestinian resistance. We have all watched this resistance fighter approaching and placing the explosive on the top of the tank. How do you think the Israeli troops will be able to fight among those brave fighters? Nothing but confusion, fear, and frailty. What the Israelis are good at over the past 75 years is nothing but perpetrating pogroms, massacres, with the aim of exercising pressure on the leaders of the resistance to wave the white flag. And I believe the scenes we have been witnessing every day, every hour, every minute, women, men, children, crawling from underneath the rubble, crying out and saying, "We are holding our ground. We are standing tall. The end of this battle will be nothing but your defeat. By killing innocent civilians, you will not achieve anything." All what's taking place in Gaza Strip, seen by the whole world, reveals and proves once again the brutal, barbaric nature of the Zionist regime of Israel, the usurping, occupying force that was planted in our region in Palestine on the grounds of the ill-fated Balfour Declaration, to feed on wars in the region, targeting Palestine and the Palestinian people, followed by The Egyptians...
Khaled Direct said Israel is hoping the region gets involved at this point because why did they bomb the biggest hospital in Gaza after this speech? And somebody tagged me on Twitter a couple of minutes, 15 minutes ago. And this post that it said, okay, the post, let me see. First of all, let me check that I can show this real quick. Okay, I can. Now, I got to be cautious too because, with this, there's a lot of finger pointing and stuff, but maybe this is what you're referring to. It says Israel deliberately, undeniably targeting hospitals where injured and civilians go for safety. Just now, more Israeli strikes from the front of Al-Quds hospital in Gaza, leaving several dead. Israel jets also targeted the Al-Shifa, an Indonesian hospital, simultaneously. And when I say air caution, because I remember that first hospital bombing, which wasn't really the hospital, but it was actually like the parking lot next to it. There was a lot of going back and forth, and at first they said it was an Israel attack, but then they said it was like I don't know if it was Hamas or Jihad or whatever, but from the Palestinian side that had shot up and then shot into the parking lot. So there was a lot of it, and it's still not even really fully clear to this day, really, with that particular attack. But I mean, undoubtedly, there's a lot of people dying out there, for sure.
Lebanese and all the peoples of the region, after all these long years, as they tried to convince the whole world that this entity is a state of rule of law, humanity, democracy. This is all proven false. We have witnessed victims, men and women, innocent civilians, the children of Gaza have unmasked the truth of this barbaric regime, backed by the Western media, who are trying to convince our peoples to remain silent or even normalize with the Zionist entity. This also reveals the direct responsibility and liability of the United States. Also, the U.S. hypocrisy. From day one, Biden claims to have spoken to the Israelis about humanitarian issues, civilians. All false claims. For a month, Gaza and the Gazans have been reeling under the brunt of barbaric, ferocious, brutal, ruthless, merciless aerial bombardment. They falsely claim that Hamas beheaded babies, and they failed to produce a single piece of evidence. Yet they remain silent against the images of thousands of babies and children torn apart in Gaza as a result of the Israeli missiles. Now,
and that whole thing too with the whole babies decapitated, that was a huge point of contention, because I remember I was actually here on the channel. I think I spoke about it that morning, and it was stated as a fact. I still don't know. There's still people saying that there was, people saying that there wasn't. There was a lot of back and forth. I mean, even so much so that I remember that there was I think the House Democrats or whatever, the House did they were talking about it, and they had stated it as a fact as well. And then it came out that it wasn't so sure, and then I don't know. It's like a lot of back and forth or whatever. Not that I personally want to see those images. There's people that claim they have seen those images. I don't know. And that's the thing too. There's going to be a lot of information coming out from both sides, or all the different sides, and also there's people on the internet that are I've heard and I've seen that they're taking videos from other incidences or other times that there was war and people dead and posting it as if it's now. So yeah, you have to be careful too with the online stuff.
Now all exposed, the whole West claiming and preaching about democracy, humanity, rule of law. It's nothing but hypocrisy. It is a lynch law. We are living in a jungle. We all must.
Speaking of Biden, did you see the other? He caught so much ish. I'm gonna see if I can find it where they were talking about the numbers, and he was like, "Listen, the whole thing of like the health ministry and Gaza. I believe there's got to be probably thousands dead. I don't know that I would really necessarily take their word, but people say that it's credible. I don't know. I don't know if they say it's Hamas, not dependent on Hamas. It's their own thing. I don't know. There was a whole thing about the numbers as well. I'll see if I can pull it up.
Establish this fact: the United States is totally responsible for the war raging in Gaza against unarmed, defenseless people. It is the United States that vetoes condemnation of Israel in the Security Council. It's the United States that stands on the way of a ceasefire in Gaza. It is the United States proving once again, as described by Khomeini, it is the greatest Satan, the great devil. From Hiroshima to Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Palestine, the United States must be held liable
There's pictures and videos.
then penalized for all what it has been perpetrating against our people and the peoples of the region. And there comes the decision by the Islamic resistance movement in Iraq to launch offenses against the American bases in Iraq and Syria, considering that the United States is controlling the war in Gaza, and it is the United States that must pay the price for the crimes perpetrated by the Israelis in Gaza and by the Americans in Iraq and elsewhere. It is a wise decision by the resistance fighters in Iraq. Prudent, blissful, and wise decision. Yesterday also we heard about new measures against the occupied Palestinian territories, and this will be revealed on the coming days and hours. And here we salute all those noble men, noble fighters who are lending a helping hand to their fellow resistance fighters. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the duty of every free nobleman in this world to establish and reiterate these facts in the public opinion warfare led by the Western media that is falsifying and misinforming the public. We started to see the public opinion shifting as the whole world witnessed women, defenseless women and children torn apart. This is the least we can do in this battle, the battle of right against false, the battle against ferociousness, brutality and barbarism, represented by the United States and Israel. Supporting Gaza and the Gazans is the least humane requirement. Those who took out to the street in support, who rally, those who donate, let alone those who fight, are under the duty towards Gaza and Gazans. Those who remain silent must reconsider about their faith.
I was going to say must die. Those who remain silent. I was like,
they claim to be religious, and their honor if they claim to be honorable. Each and every one, all and each, must live up to his own responsibility. Speaking of which, in 1948, when the whole world abandoned the Palestinian people, this Zionist entity came to existence and pushed And the people of Palestine and the peoples of the region have paid the price of the establishment of this Zionist regime. Not only the Palestinians, the Egyptians, the Syrians, the Jordanians, Lebanese have also paid the price. Lebanon has taken a bigger toll as a result of the existence of this usurping, occupying Zionist regime. This is an established fact. And again, today, what is taking place in Gaza is not a war like the others. It is not a battle like those of the past. It is not an event like those of the past. It is a decisive battle, historical one. What is after this battle is never like what is before. This dictates that each and one shoulders his own responsibility. Speaking of which, we must set the near-term goals, which we should all work to achieve. The first goal we should work for day and night is to end the war on Gaza. The second one is to enable Gaza, the resistance fight in Gaza, and particularly Hamas, to triumph. These are the two short-term goals. We should not lose sight of these two goals. The first, to cease the war, cease the aggression on the grounds of humanitarian, ethical, religious, lawful grounds, which are unquestionable. The second one is to the interest of everyone. It is to the interest of the Palestinian in the first place. It is to the interest also, as some are misinforming the public. Some are claiming that if Gaza triumph means that Iran will triumph. If Gaza triumphs, it means that Muslim Brotherhood will triumph. This is false. The victory of Gaza means the victory of the Palestinian people, the victory of the Palestinian detainees, the Church of Holy Sepulchre, as well as Al-Aqsa Mosque. It is a triumph to all the peoples of the region. There is no time to delve in details, yet it is sufficient to indicate that the victory of Gaza is to the interest of Egypt. It is to the interest of Jordan. It is to the interest of Syria. And before all that, it is a national patriotic interest of Lebanon. And I believe this has been demonstrated enough over the past days. What if the opposite? What if Israel triumphs? What if resistance is defeated? What are the repercussions of the regional states on Palestine and on Lebanon in terms of security, politics, grassroots, popular level, and demographic level? Now, Israel is throwing threats to Lebanon and the Lebanese people. They are sinking in Gazan sand, yet darting threats against Lebanon and Lebanese. Using what? The bloods of Gazan women and children by the destruction of mosques and churches in Gaza.
That blends in really well, huh?
Speaking of responsibility, it is the responsibility of every free noble man in this world. Everyone, all and each, should shoulder his own. Arab and Muslim states must spare no effort to at least...
Teabag made an image. It's on the screen. Made a version of me, the Hezbollah leader. Dr. Edward Moskowitz, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Says, sorry, I have to set up a new account. My account, they said that one debit is compromised, is not compromised. Please let me continue my built months. Thank you, Bill. I'll send you, if you can email me. I don't know if you can. I'll send you a link for a customer support for YouTube for the members stuff. You'd have to contact them directly, but I'll send you a direct link that you just put in your email. Make sure you log in with that account if you can, and let them know. Maybe they can transfer it. I don't know how that works.
Put an end to the war.
Same skin tone.
If you are prevented from acting, listen to your religion, your conscience, your values. You should all work for the top prime goal to end. Condemnation statements are not enough. Civil relations. Recall ambassadors. We cannot condemn at the same time supply gas, oil, and food supplies to Israel. Regretfully enough, in the past wars, the Arab and Muslim states calling for cutting off oil supplies to the United States. Now, we are calling on the Arab and Muslim states to cut off oil and gas and food supplies from Israel.
Stop gas about to go up.
Your exports to Israel. I have read some reports coming from Israel satirically saying that 22 Arab and Muslim states cannot deliver a single truck of supplies to Gaza or allow the departure of a single patient. Look how weak, impotent we are. Gazans are telling the whole Arab and Muslim countries, we are not asking for your arms, weapons, or fighters, but do you not have the least of honor or dignity to deliver some aids? Presidents, scholars, ministers, many high-level and top-notch officials, aren't they capable of going themselves, staging sit-in on the borderline with Gaza? They can turn the borderline as a platform to address the whole world. Here, I do not wish to
You're part of the border too. Why don't you go do a stand-in staging thing or open that border thing?
Label others as traitors or whatever. Yet,
all this shit you talking.
We should not fall in despair. We should continue to call on our brothers. We should continue to place responsibility on the responsible, hoping at a point of time the whole humanity will listen to the sound of reason and their conscience may wake up.
Oh, shit. Uh-oh. Oh, wow. It's pretty serious. I got tagged again on Twitter. It looks like there might be something to it for let's see. This is a pretty big page. Israeli airstrike. Let me show you what I'm looking at too, so you can see. Okay. Israeli airstrikes and artillery within last few hours have targeted several buildings and positions of Hamas near both Al-Sifa and Indonesian hospital in the northern Gaza Strip, as the IDF continues to urge Palestinians still inside them to evacuate so that Hamas can be destroyed. I don't know, man. What a messy situation.
Islamic resistance in Iraq started to shoulder its responsibility towards what's going on. They announced that they are going to engage into new measures. Our honorable brothers in Yemen, Ansarullah, the Yemeni people, the Yemeni army, the patient, brave Yemeni people, against all the threats, Western and American, took a number of initiatives, launched drones and missiles. Even if dropped, at the end of the day, they will reach and they will hit their targets. They will reach Eilat, the south of Palestine, the Israeli army bases to the south of Israel. We salute our fellow resistance fighters. Yet, on our Lebanese front, some claim that we are about to engage in the war. I'm telling you, we have been engaged in this battle since October the 8th. We have been in this battle since October the 8th.
This is wild.
The Islamic resistance in Lebanon started operation the very next day after Al-Aqsa typhoon. We had no knowledge, honestly speaking, like any other party of the world. We moved into a second phase. The very following day, operations were launched from Sheba Farms and the other surrounding hills, then extended all across the borderline with the occupied Palestine. You have and are still closely monitoring the details about the daily operations. What's taking place on our front is very important and significant. Those who claim that Hezbollah should engage swiftly on an all-out war with the enemy might see what's taking place on the border as minimal. But if we look at what's taking place on our border objectively, we will find it sizable. Yet, I assure you, this will not be the end. This will not be sufficient. What's taking place on our Lebanese front, it is, on one hand, unprecedented since 1948, the creation of this Zionist entity, and the presence of Israeli posts on our borders. And since the illegal occupation settlements on the north of the occupied Palestine, on the borderline with Lebanon. Since October 8th, what's taking place since then is unprecedented since then, that all the Israeli positions, from the sea to the heights of Sheba Farms and Kafr Shub, to reel under daily offensive operations, intensified operations, targeting these posts and what's in between: tanks, armored vehicles, drones, clusters of personnel, and above all, technical installations, which are the eyes and ears of Israel. Since October 8th, the resistance in Lebanon is engaged in a true, genuine battle that can only be felt by those on the southern borderline. It is a true battle, different from all those in the past, separate from all those engaged by Lebanon, be it 2002 or 2006. Totally distinct and different battle in terms of tools, tactics, strategies, weapons, tools, and even targets. That, and a living proof to this fact is the number of our fallen martyrs who opted to remain on the forefronts. On Saturday, the 7th, immediately after Al-Aqsa Typhoon operation, the Israeli army started to bring back or retreat regular personnel from the borderline. Let me explain what are the achievements. When we speak about fallen martyrs on the Lebanese front, almost 57 fallen martyrs, including those of the Lebanese brigades, together with the fallen martyrs from Al-Qassam and Saraya al-Quds brigades in Lebanon, let alone the civilians. That number and that blood, we should know what's been achieved in order to know how to move forward. On the borderline from October 7, the Israeli enemy started to pull out personnel from the borderline with Lebanon. Total moral collapse for Gaza and Gaza Strip that has been besieged for almost 20 years, very limited space. The Israeli army pulled out army personnel from West Bank, North occupied Palestine, and called them all towards the Gaza front. At the same time, they recalled or called the reservists. The operation that started to escalate up to that of yesterday. All these operations forced the Israeli enemy to maintain their personnel on the borderlines with Lebanon, if not deploy further reinforcement. Adding to that, the elite task force that was supposed to head towards Gaza front, they are now deployed on the Lebanese borderline. This means our operations on the borderline force the Israeli enemy to concentrate their personnel and forces and equipment on our borders, which we're supposed to deploy to Gaza. Some might claim that we are taking an adventure or gambling, yet it is worthy. Please, you just imagine if we restrict our action to rhetorics, statements of condemnation, then the Israeli enemy will deploy all its force towards Gaza. Now, I have very exact figures of the total number of Israeli personnel, armed units, machinery, equipment, weapons. Yet, I requested for a brief, easy to understand pieces of information. The Lebanese front is now forcing the Israelis to mass 1/3 of their entire army on our borderline. This is number one. The majority of this forces are the elite task force and regular personnel. Second, half of the Israeli naval capabilities are now anchored in opposite Haifa. Third, one quarter of the Air Force is dedicated to Lebanon. Half of their air defenses, the Iron Dome, etc., half of it, almost half of the air defenses is deployed around Lebanon. 1/3 of their all logistics were deployed to Lebanon. These are valid, accurate, exact numbers. I'm giving you easy to understand figures. Secondly, the displacement of tens of thousands of illegal settlers and evacuations of tens of thousands others. 43 illegal settlements were evacuated. And what is left now? Nothing but army personnel, no more civilians. In the south, opposite Gaza, 58 illegal settlements were evacuated. All those evacuated from the south and north represent massive pressure economically, psychologically, and socially. And this will be a pressuring factor. A third issue, which is of no less importance, that the operations on the Lebanese borderline and Sheba farms have given rise to a state of fear and panic among the Israeli leadership, political and military, similarly to the Americans, which we will talk about later. This concern or fear that further escalation or an all-out war will exacerbate on this front, or they fear that the northern occupied Palestine front, the Israeli army, will fall into an all-out war. This is a very likely possibility. The Israelis are taking this into consideration, and it is part of their calculations. And this is reflected in all the rhetorics and statements made by the American, European, and even some Arab heads of state. That state of uncertainty, fear, and panic among the leaders of the enemy serve in two purposes. One, it causes our enemy to calculate their moves towards Lebanon. And here we speak about deterrence. We speak about genuine fear on the part of Israel. If in only one single operation against an Israeli post or an Israeli tank or a cluster of personnel on the borderline, they wouldn't have taken the brunt. Yet, today, the Israelis are taking all these blows, adjusting and calculating their moves very meticulously, simply for fear of the future. So I reiterate, our presence on the front, our operations and readiness, our daily operations on the front, cause our enemy to remain fearful, hesitant, and in panic. We have heard many statements from their ministers speaking about and banking upon the entire support provided by the U.S. and West to wage a war on Lebanon. I assure you, to the enemy, we say, if you think to assault Lebanon or take a preemptive strike against Lebanon, it will be the biggest act of foolness in the history of your existence.
Really? Talking about us? They're riled up.
They think the Lebanese would fear of what they are witnessing taking place in Gaza. We have seen this since 1948, from Qana to Sabra and Shatila. On the contrary, the scenes we see in Gaza will turn us more resolved, more faithful, to remain steadfast, defiant in resistance, and not to back or fall to our knees, no matter what the price is.
Damn.
The second most important issue, through this state of panic and uncertainty, the enemy must calculate their moves while acting in Gaza, and they are. These are some of the results of our operations in the south of Lebanon, let alone the amount of material and human losses suffered by the enemy over the past weeks. These operations in the south, the blood of our fallen martyrs, and the sacrifices by the fellow fighters and our honest, noble men who remain in the south, or those who are temporarily displaced, they are all sacrificing to this battle that is worthy of each sacrifice. It is an expression of our solidarity and support to Gaza and the Gazans, by the noble blood of the fallen martyrs, by standing steadfast. We are doing all what we can to alleviate and lessen the pressure on them, as the enemy is acting insanely, militarily and politically. Here we come to the most important point. Let the world know. For weeks, communication, pressures, even from day one, if you start any operation and if you open a front in the south, all these American fleets have come for you. You will be shelled by the U.S. warplanes. This was been told to us on October 8th, and in some details, when some Palestinian resistance fighters infiltrated from Lebanon, following the first operation by them, we received a threat that the U.S. warplanes will bombard Lebanon. I assure you, many resistance fighters have infiltrated, and many will continue to infiltrate. The threats we receive will not change our position. Therefore, we started our operation on that front, and the future of this front, any escalation and any development of whatever nature are hinged on two things, nothing more: the development of events in Gaza. It is the first factor, the development of events in Gaza. That's why this front will devolve according to the nature of development in Gaza and what is required. The second factor that is in play is the conduct and the demeanor of the Zionist enemy towards Lebanon. And here, once again, I warn you not to go further, as many civilians have fallen as martyrs. And this will bring us to the same equation: a civilian for a civilian. Again, the demeanors of the enemy against Lebanon will be a factor in play. I am speaking openly, candidly, and at the same time with ambiguity, constructive ambiguity. All scenarios are open. All scenarios are open on our Lebanese southern front. I reiterate, all scenarios are open. All options are laid out, and we can adopt any at any point of time. We all together must be prepared, ready, and available to all these scenarios and options to come. To the Americans, the United States administration, I say, darting your threats on Lebanon and resistance in the region is pointless. Not the resistance movement or the resistance countries. It has reached a point that we received message that if you continue to launch operations in the south, it will not only bombard Lebanon, but would also bombard Iran. Can you imagine? To the Americans, I say, darting your threats on us in Lebanon will be pointless. Your naval fleets in the Mediterranean will not and cannot cause us to fear. To you, I openly and candidly say that your fleet that you are using as a threat, we have prepared for them what it takes.
What is that? What are they going to do with the Navy ships out there?
You, the Americans, remember your defeats in Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan, and your humiliating withdrawal from Afghanistan. Those who defeated you in Lebanon at the early 80s are still alive, backed and supported by their children and grandchildren.
That was that Biden Afghanistan withdrawal. That was pretty bad. That was really, really bad. But he's calling it out. That shit was embarrassing.
If the U.S. and Western politics are calling for steering away from escalation, this cannot be achieved by threats against honest, noble resistance fighters defending the defenseless. The only course is to end the war on Gaza. Here it is. Israel, your servant, you, the Americans, are capable of ending the aggression on Gaza because it is you that you started. If you wish to steer away from a regional war, you must hurriedly act towards ending the aggression on Gaza. You, the Americans, are fully aware if an all-out war is broken, your fleet will be of no good. Your aerial warplanes will be pointless. You will pay a heavy price by your interests, your fleet, and your personnel. Now, today, the whole world, in the name of these spilled bloods, in the name of the defenseless civilians, in the name of churches, mosques, and hospitals, in the name of humanity, in the name of human values, virtues, the whole world is required to act genuinely and swiftly to end the Israeli aggression on Gaza. As the horizon is looming to our fellow Palestinian people and resistance fighter, I say, since the creation of the resistance fighter following the creation of the Israeli Zionist regime, we have been fighting a war of fortitude. We haven't reached a knockout victory. We still need time to be more realistic. We are winning victory by points, not knockout victory. This is what happened in 2000, 2002, and 2006 in Lebanon. And this is what happened by the Gazans, and similarly by the resistance fighter in West Bank, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Fortitude, patience, bravery. This is what we have, and this is our strength. That is what the enemy lacks. This is what the enemy wants. People, victims crawl from underneath the rubble and say, we all sacrifice to the service of the cause. Do you believe that this Israeli people that were collected from the corners of the world of diaspora, have you ever heard any of them saying that my blood, my beloved ones, and my home can be sacrificed for Israel? None. We should remain standing fast in resolve and fortitude to prevent the enemy from achieving its targets. We should all now work together to end the war and aggression on Gaza. Then we act for the resistance in Gaza to prevail. First of all, based on our firm conviction of the divine promise given to us by Almighty, the omnipotent Allah, that we will win victory. This is a promise, a divine promise given by Almighty Allah, the omnipotent, no matter what the sacrifice is. Yet we should be deservedly worthy of it. And this is proven by our sacrifices and our blood. And personally speaking, and based on my personal experience with his Khamenei, who repeated more than one occasion that we all firmly believe in this divine promise, Gaza will triumph, Palestine will triumph, Palestine will prevail. He himself repeated the same words to us in July war, when there was no victory looming in the horizon. And to our fellow brothers in Gaza, despite all the sacrifice, to all the Palestinian people, all the resistance peoples of the region, all those whose hearts are shaken by the blood of the children of Gaza, our unity, patience, fortitude, and sacrifice we offer in blood to the service of the cause of God will be rewarded by nothing but emphatic victory. Today, as we honor and celebrate the memory of the fallen martyrs, we will meet soon to celebrate the victory of Gaza and the Gazans and resistance fighters in Gaza. And may God's peace and blessings be upon you all.
That was it. Now, that was long, about an hour or so or something like that. And I had heard that some of his people were disappointed that he didn't declare war, all-out war or something. He he made threats and stuff like that, which I almost feel like sometimes they have to do that. I mean, they don't want to come off as soft or whatever. Also, the this guy Blinken, he did a presser, but I don't have time to cover it right now because I had to go pick up the baby. But he supposedly one of the things is Blinken warns Israel that humanitarian conditions in Gaza must improve to have partners for peace. Blinken said that the current situation would drive Palestinians toward further radicalism and effectively end prospects for eventual resumption of peace talks. Damn, bro. And there's people that feel like there is no, I don't know. There's some people that don't believe there can be peace. I saw a lot of different debates. Like after this, what do you do? Right? Like, do they just go back to Gaza, a place that's destroyed and uprooted and like already? I know it's already pretty bad, but now that it's been bombarded and everything, like what is there after this? I don't know, but pretty crazy. I kind of want to just to kind of share that for anybody that hasn't seen it, a little bit of perspective of what's going on. Hezbollah, that's in Lebanon, I believe.
It's sending a clear signal to the United States, these protest rallies, that the United States happens to be on the wrong side of history, that it is allowing Israel to carry on war crimes, massacres, and
I mean, I don't know what the U.S. is going to do. Let's say at some point they decide to change their support. I mean, what are they going to do? Say stop, or I guess stop funding, I guess? I mean, I don't know. I don't think Israel's going to stop. I mean, there would be a lot of pressure if the U.S. decided at some point not to support them, I guess. Pretty crazy, man. I literally fell asleep listening to this guy earlier. Like, I was taking a nap, and at one point I hear like screaming and stuff. I just hear like screaming and U.S. and something. I'm like, huh? Oh, okay. And I just looked. My eyes were kind of blurry, fuzzy, and I see this guy on the screen on my phone, and I was like, oh, snap. And the shit that kind of made me laugh a little bit was when he talked about the Afghanistan thing, which it was pretty bad, but the people are pissed. And I guess maybe this is giving some of these countries that surround Israel kind of like, well, maybe this is our opportunity. I don't know. I don't know that I really, truly, I don't know if I fully really believe that Hezbollah just really wants to be a humanitarian support to Gaza, but maybe they just see this as an opportunity. You know, what's that saying? The friend of my enemy is my friend or something? I don't know. The enemy of my friend is my friend. Or some shit like that. It's pretty messy though. I don't know what's gonna happen. I really do feel bad for people that are dying though. It's really sad to see all these people dying over the years too. If you start watching some of the documentaries over the years too, it's pretty horrible. Anyway, I guess I'm gonna head out for now. I don't know what we're gonna do this weekend. It seems like chases are just dead. Chases are kind of dead, man. I don't know. It's been kind of slow. I haven't really been doing too much on the main channel. I need to get back, but I'm not really sure. You know, I thought we were gonna be doing this trial, Caitlin Armstrong, and that turned out to be didn't work out, pan out, and I don't know. But anyway, I love you guys. Edward Moskowitz, I sent you an email with the link it's like a direct customer support thing to YouTube. You can try to reach out to them. Thank you so much for the super chat. Hopefully they can help you. I've sent 2 people there and they were able to get help with different situations. I don't know if there's something they can do for that situation that you have. Well, that's the thing. Some people, Kelly says the U.S. should stay out of it. Don't engage. Maybe focus on bettering our own country. We send out a lot of money. We do. And I know these people have interest. Like some of these places are U.S. interest, I guess. But we do send out a whole lot of money. And there's so much suffering over here in our own country too, you know. But I guess the U.S. has always been like that country that goes out and tries to be like the bigger brother or like defending type of thing. But it's always with interest though. But yeah, it's crazy to see how much money goes out. I didn't even realize how much money goes out. I didn't realize a lot of that stuff is taxpayer. Every time they say taxpayer, I'm like, what? No, really? I didn't know that shit. Taxes, man. But what I would encourage too, if you're gonna go research stuff, try to look at things, try to watch stuff from both sides if you can. I like to try to, when possible, to see things from both sides. So it's pretty interesting. My favorite thing that I watched recently was the Oslo Accords. I thought that documentary was so freaking good. The only thing about the Oslo Accords is that I didn't go further. I didn't realize at the time that I needed to go further back in history. There's a documentary. Where's that documentary? Oslo. Here it is. This to me, I love this documentary. I thought it was so good. I was watching it the other morning. I'll put it in the description. It's called Shattered Dreams of Peace. I think the story of Arafat is really interesting too. I looked a little bit into him and his death, mysterious death, which I think he was killed. I'll put that in the description. I didn't realize that when I was watching this that I needed to go further back, and that's when I started looking a little bit at Nakba. It's called Nakba. But then even with Nakba, I feel like you still need to go further back beyond that. But I'll put the link for this in the chat and in the description, Shattered Dream. If you're bored, you want to listen to something, it's really, 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 really interesting. It's just a small piece of it. I'll put it there. Shattered Dreams. Yeah, you're right. Like the beginning of time. Yeah, our country is, I don't know, man. And everything's so expensive. Everything's so, to buy a house, although the percentages are high, the rates are all high, groceries, everything's expensive as hell. I think gas is going up. I think it was assassinated too, Luffy. There was a documentary I watched about that where they found some type of I thought it was like a plutonium. No, it wasn't plutonium. It was some other type of nuclear type of thing they put in him. And at the time, it wasn't really well known, so they didn't know to test for it. But the crazy thing about Arafat, at first they thought it was Israel, but like I think they kind of claimed to the conclusion or a guess that it was his own people. People wanted him out. This thing was so good.
If you got a flat roof,
must go back to Balfour Agreement. Okay, gotta go back. Yeah, I remember you sent me some. I gotta go. I haven't gone there yet. I have to go further back. So, but all right, guys, I gotta go. Maybe we'll be back later. Hopefully, there's a chase or something, or maybe we'll find something to stream later on.